What is up? Welcome to the Uncensored Pro Wrestling Podcast. And today we are covering the greatest matches of WrestleMania of the 1980s. In the 80s, the time of territories in professional wrestling was coming to an end. The National Wrestling Alliance did big in 1983 with their pay-per-view Starrcade, and the WWF wanted to make history in the same vein. So, on March 31st, 1985, the WWE debuted WrestleMania live from Madison Square Garden in New York City. The event featured many celebrities, including Muhammad Ali, Mr. T, Cyndi Lauper, the Rockettes, and many more. That night, WWE changed the professional wrestling industry forever. WrestleMania would finish in the 80s and 1989 with WrestleMania 5 from Trump Plaza in Atlantic City, New Jersey. In this special episode, we are going to take a look back at the classic matches that cemented WrestleMania as the main event in pro wrestling. This is the best WrestleMania matches of the 80s. Yes, I am Ant, and welcome to the Uncensored Pro Wrestling Podcast. Today, we are covering the special episode, the greatest matches in WrestleMania history from the 1980s. And we're going to kick off our match list with the first WrestleMania, obviously, in 1985. The main event was huge. The WWE Champion Hulk Hogan teamed up with Mr. T, accompanied by Jimmy Superfly Snuka, to take on Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, who were accompanied by Cowboy Bob Orton Jr. to the ring. Now, this match was more than just a tag match. Mr. T and Hulk Hogan were friends, and Hogan starred with Mr. T and Rocky in the Rocky film series together. And this is just the beginning of WWE joining forces with MTV. And there was just a lot of pop culture stuff going on in the mid 80s with WWE at the time. And the storyline going into this main event is that Mr. T and Hulk Hogan are friends, and Roddy Piper trashes Mr. T, attacks him and Hulk Hogan. And then this sets up for the main event at WrestleMania. We saw throughout the months leading up to the match, Mr. T and Hulk Hogan training. Hulk Hogan and Mr. T even guest hosted Saturday Night Live to sort of promote the WrestleMania event. And it was just going to be a huge night. And to make it even more intriguing, Muhammad Ali, probably the greatest boxer of all time, was a guest enforcer in this match. And before the match even started out, Liberace came down, he danced with the Rockettes, and it was just a spectacle to see. So let's go right to the match and just recap what happened. Roddy Piper tags in first, and he wants Mr. T in the ring too. T eventually comes in, and the two face off, and this is a very famous moment in WrestleMania history. Mr. T slaps Piper, Piper slaps back and forth slaps until Piper ends up kicking Mr. T in the chest. Basically, all from four men start fighting, and Muhammad Ali gets into the ring and tries to go after Roddy Piper and Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., but thankfully they get out of the way before anything could happen. Hulk Hogan and Mr. T send Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff into one another, and then there is a double clothesline to Roddy Piper, and then Mr. T body slams Roddy Piper to the mat. Hulk Hogan lands a big boot, and he ends up doing that to Roddy Piper outside of the ring. And then Roddy Piper ends up hitting Hulk Hogan's back with a chair on the outside, which was, interesting to see this being, this match being regular. There were disqualifications, so I was wondering why this match didn't end, but it's okay. A double atomic drop to Hulk Hogan, and then Roddy Piper lands a knee lift to Hulk Hogan's face. And then Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff lands a flying elbow to Hulk Hogan's head. Paul Orndorff misses a flying knee. And that's when Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., who is Randy Orton's father. This is when things get a little chaotic. He climbs the top of the rope, and Orton, trying to hit Hulk Hogan with his elbow cast, jumps off the top rope. Hogan moves, and he ends up nailing Mr. Wonderful for Orndorff. And then Hulk Hogan ends up getting the win after pinning Paul Orndorff. And this was a chaotic match, but it set the tone for what WrestleMania was going to end up becoming. Huge celebrities, for example, this year's WrestleMania, you're going to see celebrities like Logan Paul and Johnny Knoxville. Mr. T was a celebrity fighting in the main event. So celebrities main eventing and competing in WrestleMania has been happening since the beginning. So this is a great main event to kick off WrestleMania. Next, we have WrestleMania 2, and this WrestleMania took place in April 1986. And this WrestleMania was from 3 different venues: Chicago, New York, and I think the last one was Michigan, I think, if I'm correct. I'll have to go back and look. But we are talking about the WWE Tag Team Championships on the line. The WWE Tag Team Champions, a dream team consisting of Greg the Hammer Valentine and Brutus Beefcake, with Johnny Valent taking on the British Bulldogs, who are the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, and the Dynamite Kid. And they are joined by celebrity singer Ozzy Osbourne and Captain Lou Albano. And this is a back and forth match to start. Dynamite Kid sends Greg Valentine into the post, and he gets a 2 count. Davey Boy drops Greg the Hammer with a very high suplex. The Hammer Beefcake attack the arm of Davey Boy Smith. Davey Boy lands a press slam to the bar to Brutus Beefcake, and then Dynamite Kid nails a fisherman suplex, gets a 2 count. Greg Valentine drops an elbow on Davey Boy's neck and lands a suplex. Brutus Beefcake lands a shoulder tackle to what's that? Yes, that was. I'm sorry. That was the British Bulldog that did that. My handwriting in this is pretty sloppy. You guys don't mind me. The British Bulldog ends up nailing a shoulder tackle to Greg the Hammer Valentine. Greg Valentine nails an inverted pile driver for a 2 count. And then Davey Boy drops Greg Valentine across the top rope and nails a power slam and gets a 2 count. Davey Boy Smith. Bruce Beefcake drops an arm on Davey Boy Smith, snap mare, and a foot to the back of Davey Boy. Dynamite Kid sends Greg the Hammer Valentine head first into Davey Boy's head, and Dynamite Kid gets the win. Again, another chaotic match, but this was the first time the British Bulldogs were your WWE Tag Team Champions. Ozzy Osbourne was at ringside, and this match was a great wrestling tag match. A lot of chaotic stuff happening here, but it definitely was a match to check out. A lot of stuff happening, and it definitely was a great match. WrestleMania 2, British Bulldogs versus the Dream Team. Now we're going to move on to WrestleMania 3, and we have the WWE Intercontinental Championship on the line. The Intercontinental Champion Macho Man Randy Savage, along with his manager Miss Elizabeth, taking on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat with his manager George the Animal Steel. Well, not his manager, his friend. The story goes back to when Randy Savage injured Ricky Steamboat's throat by basically injuring his larynx. And now Ricky Steamboat has come back to get revenge and get the Intercontinental title from Macho Man Randy Savage. This match is on the list of pretty much everyone's top 10 favorite WrestleMania matches, and you will get the recap and a great example of why this match is great. Ricky Steamboat with 2 arm drags and a choke drop to Randy Savage. Randy attacks Steamboat's throat, and Steamboat chops Randy into the ropes, and Randy is tied up. Randy needs Steamboat in the back, and then Savage needs Steamboat outside over the railing, so he goes into the crowd. And then Savage nails a double axe handle to Ricky Steamboat outside of the ring. Savage with a double axe handle in the ring, a clothesline, and a 2 count. Savage nails a gut wrench, another 2 count. And then Steamboat backdrops Randy Savage to the outside of the ring. Steamboat nails a karate chop off the top rope, but Randy Savage puts his foot on the rope. A lot of back and forth pin attempts from both men. And then Steamboat slingshots Savage into the post. Savage sends Ricky Steamboat's shoulder first into the post, but ends up hurting his shoulder. And then Savage runs Steamboat into the referee, and Savage nails a flying elbow drop, but there's no pinfall because the referee is knocked out. Savage grabs the ring bell, Steel grabs it, and then Savage climbs the top rope, but George Animal Steel pushes Savage off the top rope, and then Steamboat rolls up Randy Savage and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is your new WWE Intercontinental Champion. This was a great match with a lot going on again, but as far as singles competition, Savage and Steamboat looked great in this match. Nobody else could do it like they could. The back and forth action was just phenomenal. George Steele getting involved was huge. Miss Elizabeth being at ringside was also another example of Randy Savage evil antics. And yes, it was a great match. Steamboat came out on top. I definitely recommend checking it out. Ricky Steamboat versus Randy Savage, WrestleMania 3. Now we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to be completing our last two greatest matches of WrestleMania from the 1980s. Stay tuned. Yes, welcome back. Definitely check us out on Anchor and use Anchor for your own podcast. You can create and distribute a podcast for free through Anchor. Just check out anchor.fm. And yes, it's the best place that you can use to create your own podcast. And that's actually what we use here at the Uncensored Pro Wrestling Podcast, Anchor. So definitely check it out. Also, you can check us out on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever podcasts are streaming. Just search the Uncensored Pro Wrestling Podcast, and there we are. We are also available on YouTube. Check out, type in Uncensored Pro Wrestling Podcast in the YouTube search engine. Subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell. When you do hit the notification bell, you get notified to your cell phone whenever new content is premiering, like a new video. Also, when you do find us on streaming platforms such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you give us a 5-star rating so you can continue hearing great content like this. So we are going to round up our end of the greatest WrestleMania matches of the 80s. And up next, we're still at WrestleMania 3, and we have the WWE Champion Hulk Hogan defending against Andre the Giant with Bobby the Brain Heenan. And looking back at this match, it was crazy to see how big and huge Andre was compared to Hulk, who Hulk isn't even a small guy himself. So it was great to see just the size difference between the two. And these two came to blows after Andre turned on Hulk Hogan and joined forces with Bobby Heenan. And these two were finally going to meet at WrestleMania. So the two face off. Hogan punches Andre. Hulk Hogan tries to live with Andre, and Andre falls on top of Hulk. And the referee ended counting 3, but it was a mistake. It was supposed to be a 2. Andre punches Hulk's back, and Andre hits a knee to Hulk's face. Andre nails a huge body slam, and Hulk Hogan crawls across the ring. Andre sends Hulk into the posts and nails a shoulder block. Hulk Hogan then chops Andre and sends Andre's head many times into the ring post. Andre lands a big boot, and he applies a bear hug. Hulk Hogan breaks free, punching Andre, and he nails a big boot, but Hulk Hogan falls outside. And while they're outside, Andre accidentally headbutts the ring post. Hulk exposes the concrete, but Andre backdrops Hulk Hogan. Hulk clotheslines Andre, dropping him to the mat. He ends up hulking up, nails a huge body slam and a leg drop to pin Andre the Giant. This was a great match, and many fans like me critique it because it's anytime Hulk hooks up, you're probably going to see the end. Andre was in control for most of the match, so to see Hulk Hulk up at the end, it kind of put a bad taste in your mouth. But dude, Hulk looked great body slamming Andre. Andre is a huge, huge giant, and to allow Hulk to do that shows his respect for Hulk Hogan. This was WrestleMania 3 from Pontiac Silverdome. It was the largest attendance record at the time for a WrestleMania event, and these two just put on a huge match and delivered. We are at our last match of WrestleMania from the 1980s, and it is from WrestleMania 5 in Trump Plaza in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The Mega Powers explode. WWE Champion Macho Man Randy Savage taking on his former best friend Hulk Hogan. Miss Elizabeth will be in the neutral corner. This match all started when Randy Savage got jealous and thought that Hulk Hogan was trying to hook up with Miss Elizabeth. And these two were going to meet after Randy attacked Hogan numerous times. And at WrestleMania, the mega powers were definitely going to explode. So Hulk tosses Randy across the ring, and then he nails the shoulder block. Randy nails a thumb to the eye and a kick, a double axe handle, and then Randy applies an armbar with his knee in Hulk's face. Hogan sends Randy outside, and Hogan sends Savage into the post, a clothesline, and 2 elbow drops. Randy kicks Hogan in the face, nails a clothesline, and Hulk Hogan is bleeding. Hogan hulks up, and he catches Randy's boot and nails an atomic drop. Savage with a knee lift to Hogan into the corner. Randy plunges Hulk Hogan, causing him to bleed even more. Savage slaps Hulk. Hogan nails a running clothesline in the corner. And then Hogan body slams Randy Savage to the outside. Elizabeth goes to check out Randy, but he yells at her and pushes her away. Randy attacks Hogan in the eye. And Hogan has Randy up, but Liz stands in the way. Randy sends Hulk Hogan in the post. Liz helps Hulk Hogan up. Randy yells at Elizabeth and he shoves her to the back. Randy then nails a double axe handle to Hulk Hogan outside, ramming him into the railing. Then Savage chokes Hogan with wrist tape and he ends up choking Hulk Hogan on the mat. Randy nails a flying elbow drop and he gets a 2 count. Hogan hulks up, nails a big boot, a leg drop, and Hulk Hogan is your new WWE champion. A great match, but again, the ending where Hogan pretty much got the full punishment throughout the entire match, and then all of a sudden he is healthy enough to nail a big boot and 2 leg drops and call it a night. So it was a great match, great seeing Randy turn heel, and it was just a sign for things to come in the 90s. But for the 80s, there were so many great matches, but these 4 matches were the ones that stood out the most that fans still to this day talk about. And I do agree that they do have merit. There are some matches on here that you think maybe should have been on here. And if there are some matches that you think should have been on here, let us know in the comments. What matches do you think we missed on our greatest matches in WrestleMania history, 1980s? Well, that is it for now. Stay tuned next week. Well, in 2 weeks, we'll be bringing you the greatest WrestleMania matches of the 1990s. You're going to see wrestlers like Stone Cold, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, and many more. The Rock. Take over the 90s. Take over WWE. The Attitude Era commences. And get ready. Stay tuned. Stay safe. And we will see you next time. Bye.